I think we're live. Fairly certain. Okay. Here we are, Sunday Live. Back at it. Okay. Do have a bit of an agenda this time, not just going off of wherever the wind takes me. Got one person watching already. Let's go. Okay. So during live stream today, just wanted to talk about a few things. I want to talk about some of the past week's news, the biggest news stories from the past week, including talking about Election Day, which is happening in 2 days on Tuesday. I want to talk about what's happening in Sudan. I'm not going to go super deep into that, but I definitely want to talk about just some updates on the civil war, the crisis, the genocide, the humanitarian crisis, everything. So it's a lot of things all at once happening there. I'll do my best to try to unpack what's happening. And then I want to talk about AI. Why it's causing hundreds of thousands of American jobs to be cut. It's truly a crisis, AI is. And we're in a massive bubble that we haven't seen, economic bubble that we haven't seen in quite a long time. So let's start with some news from the past week. The government shutdown. All right. I think we're in the middle of the second largest government shutdown in US history, only rivaled by Donald Trump's first term when the government was shut down. It's just an absolute circus because both sides are blaming each other and no one's taking real accountability. It's just a shit show. Got my copious notes here. Let's do this. Okay. SNAP benefits. This is the biggest concern that I had during last week's live stream was SNAP benefits or food stamps were set to be paused. The federal government was using the USDA, and they were trying to they still are trying to weaponize the SNAP program, the Supplemental Food and Nutrition Assistance Program. I think I got that right. They were trying to weaponize it to try to get Democrats to vote for the CR, which is the budget that Democrats are refusing to vote on because it cuts healthcare for 7 million Americans, but and for other reasons. But it looks like, at least here in Michigan, SNAP benefits might not get paused like previously thought. The state house has passed a bill. I think it's $900 million. I'm not sure if that would cover enough to supplement the whole month of November. But the Michigan legislature, sorry if you're not from Michigan, but that's just, I follow Michigan politics very closely. So I'm just, hopefully other states have also followed suit. But the Michigan legislature has, I know it passed the House. It might still have to pass the Senate, but they have passed a bill where it's going to provide $900 million to Michiganders who are on food stamps, whose benefits would be paused starting yesterday. I don't have any updates yet on whether that has been passed or whether that's going to continue to go through the legislature, because two federal judges, this is a big update, just a couple days ago, two federal judges, they struck down the Trump administration's attempt to not use reserve funds. So the USDA has a reserve fund for times like this. So I forgot the number, but there was like $5 or $10 billion or something like that. I think $5 billion in a reserve fund that's supposed to be used for SNAP benefits and for other things, but the government is refusing to use that money to make sure that the 42 million Americans who are receiving food stamps, they're refusing to use that money to make sure that those people don't go hungry in November. So two federal judges ruled that the Trump administration, or the USDA specifically, has to use that money. So, two federal judges in two separate states ruled that it is wrong and illegal for the USDA, ran by the Trump administration, to not use that reserve funding on the 42 million Americans whose Novembers are set to be very, very bad. So that's a pretty big update. Hopefully next live stream, next Sunday, I'll have a bigger update. And this week we're going to learn a lot this week on um, how this SNAP benefit pause really is going to affect Americans. So stay tuned if you're watching this, or if you watch this back later on. Stay tuned next week, or just follow the news closely. That's the best. That's the best thing you can do, is follow the news and try not to blow your brains out while you're doing it. That's my goal every day, is to get informed just enough to where I don't blow my brains out. That's my goal. Anyway, we'll move on. So the government shutdown is still happening. We're getting very close to this being the largest or the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Yeah, things are getting extra spicy here if you're watching from abroad. Okay. So once again, I'll hopefully have an update next week for you. What else do we have? I got this boom arm. It's not the greatest. It's all up in my face. So if I punch this out during the live stream, it's because it's creaky and it makes noises and it's irritating. Okay. The next, so I want to talk about three things. The first one was the government shutdown and SNAP benefits. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the crisis in Sudan. This is a story. It's a situation, the crisis that is not being covered enough in U.S. media. I'm sure you've heard something about it. I'm sure you've heard of, oh, there's a civil war happening in Sudan. I'm sure you've heard that there's a humanitarian crisis, that there is armed conflict. But this situation is very deep. It's not a new thing that's been happening. It's rooted in a lot of history in that region, a lot of history that I am not qualified to speak on. But what I can talk about is how it's affecting the citizens of the region. I can talk about who the major players are in this conflict. You got the military, which is the government armed forces, and then you have a sort of like a militia group that is claiming to be the true leaders of the Sudan government. But I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, this is just one of those, before I get into the details, this is just one of those situations where we are not educated because, one, it's not in American media. Like, we're not hearing about it ever, unless you might see a headline, like I said, civil war unrest in Sudan or whatever it is. But it's really a travesty that this isn't getting more coverage, because the statistics and the details I'm about to tell you is quite damning. And from my perspective, should be top 3 news worldwide. It rivals what's happening in Gaza as well, as far as the devastation, the level of humanitarian crisis that's happening in Sudan. It definitely rivals Gaza. Not that I'm trying to compare the two, but here, let's get into some details about what's happening in Sudan. And brace yourselves. I'm not going to show any pictures, but yeah, just give me a moment. Let me pull up my stats. Actually, I have an article. Oh, there's my live stream. Okay. I have this awesome article that I found from the BBC. It's called A Simple Guide to What is Happening in Sudan. So I'm going to kind of skim through the article, and there's a lot of information that's missing from this article, especially regarding the level of humanitarian crisis that this has reached, like how many people it's affected. It doesn't do a great job at kind of like contextualizing why these groups are, why the civil war is happening. So I'll try to provide some more information on that level. But here, let me skim through this article and kind of explain what's going on. Um, and like I said at the beginning of the stream, I'm not going to go super deep into this because I'm just looking at this from an American media perspective. You know what I mean? Like there was a lot of nuance to this conflict that includes Egypt, Chad, and other nations in the region. And we don't. I'm reading this from Western media. You know what I mean? So it's. I'll just give you the facts of what I have. Sudan plunged into a civil war in April 2023 after a vicious struggle for power broke out between its army and a powerful paramilitary group, the RSF. So that's the group I mentioned earlier. The RSF is not seen as the true army or the true government, but they want to be. And this civil war, so both of these groups are from Sudan. This crisis, this war has led to famine, genocide, humanitarian crisis that we haven't seen aside from Gaza and from Ukraine. Actually, now that I think of it, there's a lot of conflicts right now that are causing humanitarian crises. Okay. More than 150,000 people have died in this conflict across the country. 12 million have fled their homes in what the United Nations has called the world's largest humanitarian crisis. So the UN actually sees this as larger than Gaza, larger than Ukraine, Russia, larger than all the humanitarian crises that are caused by those conflicts. And thank you to the BBC for the next part. It's here's what you need to know. Why is there a civil war? This is where the BBC tries its best to explain in American terms what's going on here. You know what I mean? Or explain in Western terms. But this conflict is super, super really difficult to understand if you aren't from the region. But here's what the BBC gives us. It gives us a little bit of details. There's about 100,000 RSF members. On that's the paramilitary group that they explained. Who are they? So the RSF is, like I mentioned, they're not internationally recognized as the military or as the government in Sudan, but they're trying to be. They feel like that they are the true army, and this will explain kind of who they are. They were formed in 2013 and has its origins in the notorious Janjaweed militia that brutally fought rebels in Darfur. They were accused of genocide and ethnic cleansing against the region's non-Arab population. So that's also another factor, is these people want to transform the entirety of Sudan into an Arab-controlled nation. So there have been claims and lots of evidence of genocide against people who are non-Arab. Another factor that you should know is the other side, the army, the Sudan government-controlled army, or I guess what's left of the Sudan government, because it's completely collapsed by now. So what does the military control? The Sudan. I almost said U.S. So the military controls most of the north and east, and I'm going to show you a map here in a second to kind of illustrate this. However, RSF is launching devastating drone strikes and missile strikes all the time to try to conquer the rest of the nation. Here's a good map that kind of explains what's going on. So in the red, it's the army. It's what is internationally recognized as the Sudan government, and in the blue is the territory that is controlled by the RSF and their allied groups. And I guess in the northwest, there's other armed groups that are kind of controlling that region of Sudan, connected to Chad. So over 18 months, actually, let me back up a little bit. Al Fashur is what's in the is like one of the major players in the news right now. So Al Fashur was the last major urban center in Darfur, which is a region that was held by the government, the army. It fell to the RSF, so this paramilitary took over this region. They conquered it at the end of October, so just recently. And it was an 18-month battle to try to take over that region. This article says the RSF laid siege to the city, causing hundreds of casualties, overwhelming hospitals, and blocking food supplies. That sounds awfully familiar. Sounds like Gaza. Is there a genocide? Is there a genocide? Let's read. Let's find out. Spoiler alert, yes. Many Darfuris believe the RSF and allied militias have waged a war aimed at transforming the ethnically mixed region into an Arab-ruled domain. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, the RSF is trying to transform Sudan, specific parts of Sudan, into an Arab-controlled state. And that's not what the people want. That's not what the army wants, the government, the internationally recognized government of Sudan wants. In March 2024, UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, gave harrowing accounts of armed men raping and sexually assaulting children as young as 1. Some children have tried to end their own lives as a result. In the same month, Human Rights Watch said it was possible that the RSF and allied militias were carrying out a genocide in Darfur against the Masalit people and other non-Arab communities. So there's tons of allegations of this group committing mass atrocities against non-Arab people. Thousands have been killed in El Jania, which was a campaign of ethnic cleansing, with the objective of at least having them permanently leave the region. That's literally what ethnic cleansing is, but all right. Yeah, this is just, it's a super complicated topic. I don't want to get too much more into it. There are some more stats that I want to bring up. Yeah, just give me a sec here. I'm trying to figure out this technology still. Okay. So like I mentioned, the RSF is sort of acting like it's not fair to compare this situation to Gaza. It's not, because it's different. The players in this conflict are completely different, but the RSF is blocking humanitarian aid from entering the regions where the crisis is most prevalent. Here's another important part of this whole story is what attempts have been made to end the conflict. Well, clearly not any that have been good enough, because this situation is still happening. There have been several rounds of peace talks in Saudi Arabia and in Bahrain, but have failed, obviously. Reports say that there are more than 24 million people in the country who are facing acute food insecurity. Aid volunteers told BBC that more than 1,100, or almost 80%, of the emergency food kitchens have been forced to shut. Yeah. That's just fucking great. So I just gave you some of the basic information, kind of who the two major players in this conflict are. I urge you, if you're watching this back, to please do some more research. I'll include the article in the description of this video. But please do some research into the situation, because all I did was kind of explain who the groups are, how this humanitarian crisis is impacting the citizens. And I didn't really get into what has been done on the U.S. side to try to solve this issue, because there really hasn't been much. Just to be completely honest, I tried to find some articles or some information on what the Biden administration did and what the Trump administration did, and there is some information, but it's clearly not effective. Whatever they try to do. Okay. So again, I urge you, if you're watching this back, to just look into the situation more. Try to find some time to educate yourself on the situation. It'll be worth it. It's important. Next story. So this is the final news story of. This is the final thing I wanted to talk about as far as news goes. AI is causing mass job loss in all sorts of industries, it turns out. With my copious notes here that I took, industries including, or corporations including Amazon, UPS, Target, Paramount, over 31,000, so 3,100 or 31,800 jobs have been cut just from those places recently because of AI. What does this mean for us? Well, it means that we are fucked. It means that with things turning to automation, with the workforce trending toward using AI, it means a lot of things for our economy. It means a lot of things for people, for our society. It also is going to be really detrimental to our own personal health. AI was just kind of released just a handful of years ago, but I'm here to tell you, man, this is not news to you, but AI is going to have an extreme detrimental effect to our mental health, to our ability to critically think. It's, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. It's not looking good. Okay. Cool. Trying to see if I can see I don't have any comments yet, but I'm trying to see if there's a way for me to look at the comments on this streaming service. So technology. Okay, not yet. Okay, cool. So AI, last thing I'll say is we really screwed ourselves. America specifically is screwing ourselves even more by not getting ahead of the game in the AI game, in the AI race. This is the new space race. It really is. And I think Joe Biden, he did something at the end of his presidency. One of the very few good things, actually, let me take that back. At the very end of his presidency, I made a video about this last year. At the very end of Biden's presidency, he did a slew of things that were just completely based. Some amazing things, like he rolled out a set of rules and regulations for AI for the government. I thought that it was very responsible to do that, given how dangerous that this technology is looking to become. But another thing that Biden also did, that pissed me off, but also made me happy at the same time, was he forced the, was it the NLRB? He forced some government agency to not report medical debt on credit reports anymore. That was one of the most amazing things he did. Unfortunately, he waited until the freaking end of his presidency to do it, which is really frustrating. Mainly because as soon as Trump got in there, just a couple months after he made this decision, he reversed it. Trump Trump was like, nope, we actually want medical debt to be reported on credit reports because that makes a lot of money for the credit agencies, and they probably bankroll my campaigns. All right, so enough with AI. I'm gonna sound like a boomer. It's here to stay. The technology is here to stay. There's nothing you can do about it. The only thing we can do is learn how to navigate it, learn how to use it to be productive, use it to enhance our lives. But as far as I'm seeing, it's not enhancing anyone's lives. Like all I see on my timeline on social media is AI slop, which is just brain rot um, content that is supposed to be not educating. It's supposed to be entertaining us, but really, I just every time I see an AI slap video, I just lose more brain cells. And I didn't know I had brain cells to lose, but it turns out that I do, in fact. Um, but it's not just that, but it's also bad for art. AI is it's in the next 10 or 15 years, we're gonna see a renaissance of artists who are anti AI because right now we already see it. We already see how um, physical art, music, all sorts of art forms are being demolished by the AI scene or by the AI technology that can make art like instantaneously, just like that. And it's getting pretty damn good at it too. I'm going to stop trying to sound like a boomer on AI and I'll just move on to the next thing. All right. So now we're going to talk about the election. Cool. This is the last thing I'll talk about before I respond to people's comments from the last week. So before I respond to people's comments from the last week, we're going to talk about the election, which is happening just in 2 days. Tuesday. All right. I found this website, boltsmag.org. I don't know much about the political bias of this website, but I do know that they have a great page here. It's a cheat sheet to the 2025 general elections. Okay. So let's read a little bit of this article here. 4 contests have come to largely define the 2025 elections this fall, which is happening in 2 days. The elections to lead New Jersey, Virginia, and New York City, plus California's redistricting measure. But there's so much more on the ballot, it says. On this webpage, there are more than 190 key elections that will be decided. I want to talk about some of these major elections nationwide, statewide, in some key states. But here's how it's kind of formatted. It's kind of cool. So there's these drop downs where I'm gonna put the link to this. I urge you to go look at this. It's pretty cool. But they have all the info on the elections nationwide, statewide, throughout the states. So for state governments, here are some of the governors. I'm just gonna go through some of the major ones. I told you this thing was in my face. Just hit me in the chin. Okay, so here are some of the governor races throughout the country that are pretty important. New Jersey, Democrat Jack. Holy shit! I just went to Italy and I can't pronounce that. Republican Jack Ciattarelli wants to end the Democrats' 8-year streak of control over New Jersey and take the state to the right. He faces Democrat Mikey Sherrill, a current member of Congress, and a former Navy pilot. Fun. All right, and then the other governorship election is in Virginia. Republican Glenn Youngkin is barred from seeking a second term. Uh-oh. Democrat Abigail Spanberger, who is a member of Congress, is trying to flip the governorship as she faces Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. So Glenn Youngkin is barred from... Actually, I want to know why. Why is Glenn Youngkin barred from seeking a second term as governor? Why is Glenn Youngkin not running? Glenn Youngkin is not running for a new office because Virginia's term limit laws prevents him from seeking re-election as governor. Interesting. I thought he's only served one term. Okay, what is term limits? Virginia. Oops. Virginia governor. Wow. The governor of wow, did I just say vagina? Virginia is limited to serving one 4-year term and cannot serve again for the next term. Oh, so there's no overall term limit, meaning a former governor could run for office again. So basically, he just can't serve consecutive terms. I don't understand that. Term limits are a great thing, and they should be implemented nationwide for every single political office. But 4 years is not enough time to to get past anything that you want to get past. Like politics at federal level is certainly divided, but at the state level, it can be even more contested. Um, so sometimes incremental change is what it takes to get things done. And I'm not a huge fan of incremental change, but stay tuned for that. Kamala Harris said something that blew Jon Stewart's mind. Um, but that's interesting that in Virginia, you can only serve as governor for 4 years at a time, and then you have to take a break for a term. And ooh, I don't know about that. Kind of sus. Yeah, I said it. That's sus. Okay, so those are the two governor races in the U.S. is New Jersey and Virginia. Hit me in the face again. Okay. Other statewide offices. Let's see. Virginia Attorney General, Virginia Lieutenant Governor. A bunch of special elections are happening in state legislatures nationwide. Let's see. So those are some of the state governments, some of the elections. Here are some of the major categories of referendums that are on state ballots nationwide: election laws, labor, housing, education, transportation, parks, infrastructure packages, criminal justice and law enforcement reform, tax laws, yada yada, a whole bunch of stuff. Here is where it gets spicy, which is mayoral races throughout the nation in major cities. There's a lot of them. Fairbanks, Alaska, Six Towns, Connecticut, Miami, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, Topeka, Kansas, New Orleans, Louisiana. So some major cities are electing mayors this coming week. Annapolis, Boston, Dearborn, Detroit, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Jersey City, Albuquerque, and of course, New York City. I'm going to do a live stream on Tuesday night on election night. And in that live stream, I'm just going to kind of cover the live results as they come in. I'm going to be hoping and praying to Allah, to Zeus, to God, to Jesus that Zoran Mamdani wins this election. I just visited New York City this summer, spent a few days there. And a lot of people say New York City is one of those cities where it's great to visit for a weekend, but not to live. And that's what I did. I visited for an extended weekend. Stayed at a house in Queens, but I traveled throughout all the boroughs. I took the subway basically everywhere, and I was impressed with New York City. Again, though, I was just there for an extended weekend, but really hoping Mamdani takes the win. And yeah, I'll be live streaming that on Tuesday night. So I'll be live streaming as the live results come in for all these elections nationwide that I just talked about. So it's not just New York City, Binghamton, Buffalo, Syracuse, a lot of major cities throughout the nation are electing mayors. I could keep going down this list, but again, some Seattle, Columbia, so some major cities are electing mayors. But if you're watching this, or if you come back and watch this, definitely check out this website. It's boltsmag.org, and they have formatted really nicely here all the elections that are taking place this week, a lot of people think this is an off year, right? But a lot of people just pay attention to the presidential election year. Excuse me. I think I swallowed a bug. A lot of people just pay attention to like the presidential election year and the midterm years, but these off years in between are super vital. So if you're watching this or if you watch it back, um, please go out to vote. Please look up your local elections. There's a chance that there might be a governor race in your state. State judges are at play. There's probably a lot of referendums and statewide ballot initiatives. Definitely go check that out in whatever home state you are or whatever state you are. Just checking for some comments. Okay. All right. Next thing I wanted to talk about was the polling. So I kind of talked about some of the major elections nationwide. Now let's look at the polling and see where people are. So this is from realclearpolling.com. I know Real Clear is a conservative leaning news organization. However, when it comes to polls, I don't really care if it's a conservative leaning organization that's showing these polls, because as you'll see in a second, they're showing polls from all over the country. It's not just from them. And do you really think a really biased conservative news organization is going to broadcast this disgusting number, for the world to see? President Trump, 53% disapprove, 44.4% approve. Not looking good for old Donnie. But I want to talk about some of the polls for the elections that we just talked about. Who has the upper hand right now? Where are the polls, leading toward? Okay. Let's see who we got. So for the Virginia governor race, like I mentioned, it's Earl Sears versus what's her name, Spanberger. Spanberger, she's up 12 points in the congregate of the polls, which basically means the average of all the major polls shows that she's up 12 points. That's 12 just seems like so much. It feels like too much of a spread. And it's interesting given that the attorney general race is much closer. So the Democrats only up 2 points, but the governor race is, the Democrats up 12. To me, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't understand how that could happen. But let's take a look at a few more of these elections that I mentioned a few minutes ago. New York City mayor. Okay. Mamdani, Cuomo, Sliwa. Sliwa's the Republican. Cuomo's running independent. Mamdani's the Democratic nominee. Mamdani has a 7-point lead. Let's take a look at this, see if we can get more in depth. Okay. So the average has Mamdani up 14. Sorry, it's the RCP average. Has Mamdani up 14.7 points. Fox News has him up 16. Yeah, so the Republican has absolute zero chance. Curtis Sliwa, he's got absolute zero chance. It's either going to be Cuomo or Mamdani. I will say Mamdani had a sizable lead all spring, all summer, and it's starting to shrink, his lead in the polls at least. But I think it's just too much of a gap. I think he's going to win. I think he's going to win by more than 10 points. Yeah, that's all I'll say about that. So let's go back to some of the other polls from the elections nationwide. Oh, I forgot something. Okay, let me go back to. I forgot something. There's a federal election. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot to say that. So back on this Bolts Mag website with this awesomely designed website here, there's a federal election happening. So it's the 18th congressional district in Texas. Let's see what they have to say about this. The death of Democrat Sylvester Turner has sparked a special election in the Houston area congressional seat. So Sylvester Turner, a Democrat, died while he was in office recently, and they are holding last year, I believe. They're holding a special election for this seat. So, like I said, it was a Democrat who held it, but who knows? I don't know what. Hopefully, the poll website will show us what is kind of looking what the results might look like. But it says there is no clear front runner, and all the candidates will appear on one ballot regardless of party. So the election is likely to head to a runoff. So how runoffs normally work, at least in Georgia, from when I remember working on a specific campaign that went to a runoff of in 2020 and 2021. How a runoff election basically works is in the general election, if one candidate doesn't get more than 50% of the vote, then there's a runoff election, which means that they're going to redo the election. People are going to re-vote, and it's just going to be the top two candidates or the top three candidates instead. So it sounds like there's going to be many candidates on this ballot. But if one candidate doesn't get more than 50%, they're going to redo the whole damn thing. It's a mess. It's chaotic. But at the end of the day, is it democratic? Kinda. I don't know, because on one hand, you definitely want someone to represent you who a majority of people voted for, right? If you look at the 2024 presidential election, Donald Trump did not receive the majority of votes. He won the popular vote, but Donald Trump only got like 49% and some change of the votes, which means that 51% or so voted for someone other than Trump. So in this case, if the federal presidential election had a runoff election, we would have had to all revote if we had that at the federal level, because no one got 50% or more. So that's kind of what might happen here. Is there are so many candidates on the ballot that they're going to steal votes from other candidates. So keep an eye on the Texas 18th congressional district here. Let's go back to these polls, because this live stream is already going much longer than I hoped it would. Okay. So here are some more of the New York City mayoral polls. Here's some Trump approval rating polls from Reuters, Ipsos, Yahoo. Disapprove, bigly, disapprove, bigly, disapprove, bigly, bigly, bigly. Just absolute destruction. Okay. Let's see if we can find that congressional election in Texas. Let's see. Senate, Texas Senate. Is there a special election on here? I don't know if you can see this, but I'm trying to find the 2025 special election in Texas. Let me just Google it. Polls. Okay. Is this it? Yes, Texas 18. Okay. Christian Menefee, Amanda Edwards lead Texas 18 field in final poll before start of early voting. Texas election law requires a runoff between the two top contenders if no candidate wins more than 50% in the first round of voting. Okay. Confirmed. All right. Looking at my copious notes here. Let's see what else we have. Okay. Major elections. Oh, like I said, I'm going to live stream on Tuesday night as the results of the elections come in. I'm going to follow pretty closely this congressional election in Texas. I'm going to follow pretty closely the New York City mayoral election between Mamdani, Cuomo, and Sliwa. Also, go watch the SNL skit that just dropped this past weekend. Saturday Night Live did a skit of, maybe I should just react to it. I'll save that for another time. But SNL did a skit where they mock the debate that happened between Curtis Sliwa, Zohran Mamdani, and um, former disgraced governor Andrew Cuomo, and it's hilarious. It's yeah. So go check out SNL's skit of the debate they had. But let's see. There's not much more I wanted to talk about tonight. So we went through three major news updates throughout the nation, and an international news update as well. We talked about the government shutdown, SNAP benefits. We talked about crisis in Sudan. We talked about AI crisis nationwide. We talked about election day. 5 things so far. And the last thing, I want to respond to someone's comment. I want to respond to something that someone said in a video that I posted this past week. So how this is going to work probably is when I do my live streams every Sunday, I'm going to try to respond to someone's comment or question from a video that was posted during the week before. However, some people are going to comment on older videos, and if there's a comment or question that I deem that's, I'll just say this. I had a video recently get over almost 500 comments from a bunch of MAGA minions, and I didn't read through all of them because after 250, I started to realize that none of these people are going to actually comment like arguments debating me, or none of them really watched my 15-minute argument of whatever topic this was. They clicked on the video. They probably watched the first 3 seconds where I said something bad about their dear leader, Donald Daddy Trump. And they commented that a whole bunch of slurs, a whole bunch of attacks ad hominem. So nothing about anything of substance, just personal attacks. So after about 250 of them, I was just like, okay, clearly these people are not willing to have their minds changed. So that's why I say I'm not going to respond to every comment, is because that video really just kind of screwed it up for everyone in the future. But I do want to respond to one person's. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Okay, one moment. Yeah, I think this comment was pretty good, but yeah, let me try to pull up this person's comment. If you're just joining, I am live streaming on Tuesday night of election day, and I am going to live react to the election poll, or to the votes that are coming in nationwide throughout all the statewide elections, all the nationwide. There aren't really any federal elections, except there's 2 governorships, and there's a congressional election, in a special election in Texas's 18th district. So that'll be something I follow pretty closely, as well as the New York City mayoral race as well. But let me pull up this comment. I'm 110 years old with this technology right now. This is what Trump. Okay. Let me pull this over here. Can you see it? Yes. Okay. So I made this video about Trump backstabbing American farmers and ranchers. So essentially, I talked about this in last week's live stream as well. But essentially, Trump is giving Argentina $40 billion to help import beef, because our beef economy, our cattle ranchers are struggling. The amount of cattle that we have currently is the lowest it's been in a long time. So beef prices are rising, and instead of helping out our people, instead of subsidizing American farmers and helping them out, Trump is giving Argentina $40 billion to import their beef. And American farmers and ranchers feel like they're backstabbed. They feel like Trump is not truly America first. And I got this comment. Someone said, I don't know what you expected. He screwed you guys the first administration, but you figured that it was going to be different this administration. Do you understand that that's the definition of insanity? To try to keep doing the same thing over and over again, thinking that you're going to get different results. Insane. That's the American people now. Sounds like this guy is not American, because he says I don't know what you expected. He screwed you guys, the first administration. I'm assuming he's commenting from a different country. Well, listen, Lee, you are absolutely correct. 100% correct. The chaos that ensued during the 4 years of Trump 1.0 somehow did not get seared into the minds of the American electorate. So we are so overwhelmed with information and breaking news that when people went to vote in November of last year, they must have forgotten the million things that this administration did, the Trump administration did in his first term that were outrageous, unprofessional, hurtful to the American people. I mean, just to name a couple things, embarrassing the U.S. on the international scene every time he talked to a world leader, trying to strike a coup in Venezuela. Let's see. Do I want to go the economic route or do I want to go the democracy route? I mean, he tried to overturn a free and fair election. He did. He still hasn't conceded. He's been the only president in U.S. history to never concede his loss. Like, that's, you don't want people in power that are not willing to give up power. It's just so, it's so 101. It's fascism 101. And this guy's like, how did you figure that it was going to be any different this time? I'm not one of those people. I didn't vote for him. But no, Lee, you're correct. It's insane to expect anything different than what we got the first term. And yes, that is the American people now. You are 100% correct. So thank you for that comment. I had a few other good ones for this video. So when I made that video, I said that Trump was giving Argentina $20 billion, but it turns out he doubled it. He doubled that amount, and he's giving Argentina 40 billion instead. All right. So back to my copious notes. That's the only comment I wanted to respond to. Everyone else who commented said some good stuff. The last thing I want to end on, or I want to summarize what I talked about real quick. Give a little summary. We talked about the week's news, just a few of the major things. The government shut down. 730,000 government workers are working without pay right now. Over 600,000 are furloughed. SNAP benefits are causing mass chaos in several states. However, 2 federal judges ruled that the USDA has to use the contingency funds, the reserve funds, to make sure that the 42 million Americans on food stamps don't go hungry. Didn't think we had to have a federal judge rule on that one, but all right. Thought that would just be common sense to use the money we set aside for these things. Anyway, I talked about the crisis in Sudan. And again, I'm gonna include some more links to these things in the description of this video, so you can educate yourself more on that situation. Talked about how AI is causing mass job loss, and just kind of gave you some doom information on that. Let's see. We talked about election day. We talked about the New York City race, the federal special election in Texas. Responded to a comment, and the last thing I wanted you to know, and this is the most important thing that I have said in any of my 4 live streams so far. This is the most important thing that I've ever talked about. It's absolutely vital to anyone watching to be informed on current events and really important issues. So here it is. Here is the most important thing: is I am getting a puppy, getting a dog, getting a Cockalier, which is a cross between a Cocker Spaniel and a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. This is clearly one of the most important issues weighing on the minds of the American people. Here, I want to show you a picture of what my puppy looks like. They were born 2 weeks ago. This isn't my puppy, but this is exactly what they look like right now. I don't have the picture. I don't have their pictures pulled up on my computer right now, but this is what my puppy looks like almost exactly right now. And when he's an adult, he'll look something like this. Very excited. Very excite right now. Okay. That's all I've got for this stream. Let me just double check. Okay. Cool. That's all I've got. Hopefully, I get better with this technology because this damn thing hit me in the face twice. And it took me about 400 hours just to figure out how to change screens on this. So, yeah, thank you for watching. If you watch this back over later, I want to leave you with a few a few homework tasks. Do some research on the situation in Sudan. It's worth your time. The UN is calling it the worst humanitarian crisis of our day. And that's really something given what's going on in Gaza and the genocide that's happening to the Palestinian people, and as well as the humanitarian crisis that is caused by Russian aggression and Ukrainian leadership in that conflict. So I want to leave you with just educate yourself. Please vote. I guarantee that there is an election happening near you, local, state elections. It's important to be an informed citizen, and please go out and vote. I'll put the link in the description to that website. What was it called again? To the boltsmag.org, where you can see in your local area or in your state which elections are happening. And then I urge you to do some research on the candidates and whatnot. But yeah, well, thanks for watching, and get informed and vote. That's all I'm saying. All I'm trying to say. So, all right. Thank you guys. Have a good night.